Hello, I am Profound Rice. I am an esports caster, commentator, as well as a Twitch streamer. I've been streaming for over 7 years, but been in the esports industry for about 3 years now. And I will be hosting alongside Miss Deus Geek, Laura Scott, and Kerrie Fulker. Would you guys like to introduce yourselves?
Hi everyone, I'm Miss Deus Geek. I'm currently a content creator and doer of all things when it comes to gaming. I've been in the business for about 10 years. I've done everything from writing reviews to streaming on Twitch, streaming on Mixer, doing all sorts for women in gaming just like this here. And I've also taught kids about how to play games collaboratively and be the next generation of gamers basically. That's me.
Hi everyone, my name's Laura. I started working in the esports industry back in 2017, quite some time ago now. I've primarily worked as a broadcast producer with ESL, working on lots of smaller shows but also big arena events such as DreamHack and IEM Sydney. And in the last 12 months I went over to Twitch and worked as a partner manager.
Hello everyone, I'm Ashtray Kerrie. I started as a cosplayer and then moved into event organisation. So I also worked on DreamHack with ESL, and I'm currently working for PAX Australia.
All right, so first question we have here is, how did you get into your current role in gaming? Kerrie, you sort of started answering that question about saying you got into cosplaying at first. Do you want to elaborate more on that, and how did cosplay lead to working in gaming?
Sure, so when I cosplayed, this was about 10 years ago, so a fair while, but I used to cosplay for licensors and brands, so I did some work with Bethesda, I did some work with Blizzard, and quite often at esports events. So like I was a Widowmaker at the Overwatch event that was in Sydney. It was pretty fun. And through that I taught myself social media just with my own presence, and that moved into doing socials for events. And yeah, started with anime and then moved into gaming with DreamHack, and yeah, and now at PAX. So
Yeah, so I always kind of knew I wanted to work in esports. I started watching a lot of like StarCraft and the early versions of like the NALCS back in like 2013, 2014. And I did a Bachelor of Graphic Design. And I messaged my friend, I don't know if any of you guys know Elfish Guy, he casts CS. Yeah. I was like, how do I get my foot into esports, like my foot in the door with esports? And he was like, you just need to make something and put it out there. It can literally be anything. So I took his advice and I started this weekly online YouTube series where I was kind of recapping the Oceanic esports results that happened during that week. It was awful. It was not a good piece of content by any means, but I did it with the intention to get into esports. And I think I only did it for 3 or 4 weeks before ESL reached out to me. And I had a chat with them, and next thing I know, I was interning for the very first IEM in Sydney in 2017. And I think I was with them interning for 1 or 2 months before I then went on full time. And then I was quite lucky where I kind of had the ability to choose where I wanted to head into, if I wanted to do like project management or if I wanted to lean into the TV broadcast side of things. And I chose the broadcast side of things, and yeah, they trained me up as a graphics operator because I had that graphic design background. And then a few months after that, they trained me up as a broadcast producer, which I loved, and I stuck with that for 7 years.
I started when I met my husband, and he was really into streaming at that time, and it was my first foray into live streaming, which got me really into this series called Noob Girl Plays. I'm really bad at games. I'm really, really bad to the point where it's become an entertaining part of my streams. And from there, I started even writing reviews of games for people like myself who may not necessarily be experts in gaming, who might not really understand the intricacies of playing really hardcore games. And from there, just the passion for just creating content just grew, and I started doing a lot of work with Xbox and became like an Xbox ambassador. I became the first VP for Xbox in Australia, New Zealand, and did a lot of community work just to bring Xbox into the foray of our region. And from there, it just kind of built on. I actually worked with Kerrie in anime, and that sort of led into my role at Vivi, a company that did digital collectibles for brands like Ubisoft and Capcom and all of that. So I had some sort of behind the scenes and also out of the scene as a content creator as well. So yeah, I guess for me it was just that passion. It just kept steamrolling and snowballing into something bigger and bigger each time. And now I do a lot of education content for younger generation and young girls especially, to teach them on their career paths and how to essentially get involved in gaming, whether it's through being a developer, being a content creator, and all the other pathways essentially.
Yeah, that work is very important. Having mentors in this industry, it's such a small industry, so it's really important to have mentors. So doing that work is very important, especially when there are lots of challenges that we have to go through. What are some of the toughest challenges you've had to overcome in your career so far?
Should I start? For me, the hardest thing, especially when I was streaming, is being told that I can't play games, which I know I can't. I made it as part of my series. But being told that the reason I can't play is because I'm a girl. And there were a lot of points in my career working with certain brands and trying to get into certain organizations where I didn't have the look that they were going for. And so, being a person of color, being a woman of color sometimes made me feel like it was holding me back as well. But typically the biggest challenge has always been that I cannot be here because of my gender.
A follow-up question on that as well is, how have you overcome that challenge as well? So what have you done to overcome that? And then we'll go down. So Ms. Deus Geek, how did you overcome that challenge as well? And
people can say no, but I'm still going to do it.
Yeah,
right. I love it that much that I'm just going to push past and I'm just going to do it. And yeah, I mean, I have had to develop a thick skin over the course of the years.
I think when it comes to live production, there's a lot of challenges when it comes to almost your lifestyle or the lifestyle that role brings. There's a lot of late nights, long hours, overnights, your schedule changes a lot. But I think I don't have a moment I can pinpoint as being my biggest challenge, but I think live broadcasting also brings the need to be flexibility and the need to adapt to any situation that can be thrown at you on a whim. And I think that adaptability isn't necessarily something you just have or you inherit. It's something that is it's a learned skill that you develop over a long period of time. So when I look back over my career so far and I look at maybe some of the harder moments I have, I think it all kind of comes back down to how well I adapted to a situation. And yeah, I generally always like to, look back on those moments and think of what could I have done better? Could I have communicated better on something? Then just learn from that and try and improve in the future.
Yeah, I agree. I kind of want to build off that, is working in any event space, particularly in something like gaming or esports, where it's a really niche, small community, and a lot of people are here because they love what they do. And so when you're working with people who, like Laura said, you're working really long hours, sometimes not getting a lot of sleep, sometimes really on edge, and people get frustrated, and you have to be really good at navigating, big personalities, big feelings, and just understanding that it's not always personal. You do get underestimated a lot, as Dinah said, and it's just, you have to be thick-skinned, be capable to go with the flow, and just, be prepared for anything, because there's always something that goes wrong.
So you guys have been in the industry for a long time now, but what has been a highlight of your career so far? What is something that is just one of the best moments so far in your career?
I have to say DreamHack 2024. DreamHack Melbourne, love you. Definitely one of the biggest events of my career. It was an absolute pleasure to put it on for the Australian community, and it's an event that I'll forever hold in my heart. It was also very cool to go over with the Australian cosplay team over to Paris, where they performed at the global convention over there, and they came third, which is very exciting for an Australian team, especially for the first time in that competition. So to be able to put on DreamHack and then to be able to put on that cosplay competition, to put those guys on a global stage was really awesome.
I think, not biased, but I've been able to work on so many IEMs here in Australia and also a few DreamHacks. I think IEMs they're tough work. It's a lot of effort that goes into putting these events on, but the crowd genuinely makes it worth it, the energy that everyone brings. So I think just working those events it's always instantly a highlight. In 2023, I was able to co-produce the group stage of IEM, and then I associate produced the finals, which was a challenge, but it was super rewarding. And then I had a really nice moment with someone a few years ago as well. I was working with a female talent who was international, and she came to Australia to work on a particular show I was producing, and she's very busy, works a lot of shows a year, and we just finished rehearsals, and she came up to me and she said, "You're the first female producer I've ever worked with." And it was just a really lovely moment we had together, but I think it's a highlight for me because it was a highlight for her. So yeah, I think that'll always stick with me as well.
I feel like mine's a bit of a fangirl moment. Biggest highlight for me is what actually happened a long time ago. I actually got to interview a lot of voice actors who lend their voices in games, and one of the biggest highlights was meeting Shawn Ashmore, who has been in so many different movies and TV series, and also was the main character in a game called Quantum Break, which was an amazing game. Meeting him was just so surreal. I still can't believe that I actually got to do it and actually interview him and get to sit down with him for half an hour and just have a one-on-one conversation. Similarly, I also got to interview Steve Downs, the voice of Master Chief, and that, as an Xbox girl, was huge for me. So yeah, I think just having that opportunities to interview a lot of these voice actors and celebrities were just, it's so surreal, and I can't believe that a content creator from this part of the world was able to go up and do all of these things.
So the next question is, what positive changes have been made in the gaming community? I think this question is really interesting coming from our perspective as women in gaming as well. So in your career, you guys have been around for a long time. So have you seen any good positive changes being made in the gaming community during your career path?
I wasn't sure. I was just going to say, obviously we were on a panel at Supernova a couple of weeks ago, and I spoke to the organizers of Aussie Sports, who are doing a lot of work with young girls in schools and bringing esports and gaming to schools and to them and helping empower them to upskill and get all what they need to be able to, have a career in this space. And I think, growing up, you never really see that, and to young girls now having that, that's really powerful, and I think it's something that all schools should be doing.
I think just to kind of add on to that, I think gaming is just a lot more normalized now, especially compared to like when I was at school. It wasn't really something a lot of people did, and I think it's really great that there are people that are bringing esports and gaming to schools to kind of widen the amount of people that engage with gaming. But also there's a lot of publishers now that are doing really great work with women's only leagues to just kind of, promote that, what's the word I'm thinking of? Representation in esports especially. And then I think also, on a separate note, just when it comes to gaming in general, I think the evolution of VTubers has been a really great thing for gaming as well. I think it really helps people feel safer when streaming, and also it takes a lot of pressure off them. And I think VTubers are they're always innovating, they're so creative. I have a lot of respect for them, and I think they're a very welcome kind of newish addition to the streaming scene.
Yeah, I think you guys pretty much covered some of the good points. I think personally, obviously as I get older, I'm in my mid-30s now, and I think as we all kind of grew up together in this space, it was pretty chaotic in the beginning, and I think all of us were just trying to keep our heads above water. And I think as we've grown, we all kind of cling to each other and support each other, and we realize that we're not getting through on our own, if that makes sense. We have to support one another, and I feel like my friendships, particularly with women in this industry, has just gotten stronger and stronger. So, yeah.
Next question is, what can people do to support and empower women in gaming and esports? We've talked about how we've got the high school things going on to help introduce esports to girls younger and everything. But what else can people do to support and empower women in gaming and esports?
I mean, show up, you know. There's always really cool activations that get put on, and sometimes you don't know about it until it's already done. But like, if you see an event, go support the girls, retweet them, respond to their stories, like their posts. Sometimes you're going to see some trolls who post ugly comments. Honestly, don't give them the engagement, don't interact with them, interact with the positive stuff, like push it so it's like a good thing on people's feeds, and the more people are talking about it in a hype, fun way, the less it's like, you know, especially for players, it's really intimidating when you join a team and the comments online are a bit, so like if you're on there like, you know, going against that, posting, yeah, I'm so excited, like this is awesome, like I want to see more of this, like focus on uplifting the women in those teams and the women in the staff that are putting it on, like, yeah, that's what I think.
I think Kerrie summed up pretty well, to be honest. Just, yeah, show up and support the girls. I think also keep supporting, you know, women leagues in esports as well. You know, even just thinking about how far Game Changers has come in the Valorant scene. And I even saw the FIA, if there's any motorsports fans, they announced yesterday that they're starting a Girls on Track esports league for people in iRacing, which I think is a really great initiative for them to do, because I think esports and motorsports, I think they kind of share a bit of a similar demographics. So yeah, show up and support them, and yeah, kind of like Kerrie said, if there is any negativity that you see, if it's like in game, maybe politely call someone out on it, and just, you know, it's not okay to talk to people like that, and yeah, try not to engage otherwise, I think.
I think from my perspective, I've loved seeing more female characters in games, more women in esports, more women in leadership in all these publishing companies. So I think really having that space and having those people from the top down realize and work towards having a more inclusive everything is really important, and especially that representation piece, because, you know, you've seen so many more female characters in like games like Overwatch and, you know, Marvel Rivals, and I'm harping on Marvel Rivals a lot because I love the game, but yeah, just having, you know, characters that are people that you feel a kinship with, that young girls can see and embody and want to aspire to, that isn't highly sexualized or anything like that. It's actually characters that tell a story. I think that representation is really, really important.
No, I definitely agree with all of that, with having representations and everything, having role models and people in higher positions that you can see that, hey, she can do it, maybe I can do it too. And that also, I think, talks to your point of being the only female producer that the female talent has ever seen before. I think that's a really important role as well. Do you have any advice or feedback for folks wanting to work in gaming and esports?
Yeah, I've got a bit. I think most people I know that work in esports have very abstract and diverse backgrounds. Like, there's no one straight linear path to get into esports. And I think there's a lot of jobs out there that people probably aren't even aware of in the esports industry. So I would just kind of encourage people to utilize their own unique experiences and skills that they have. And I think networking is probably the most important thing when it comes to getting into esports. So try and have genuine conversations with people and expand your networking circle. I also have some tips, I guess, for people looking to get into the talent space. If they're looking to be a caster or a host or an interviewer, I used to get asked a lot how to get, you know, involved in that scene as a broadcast producer. And kind of similar to the advice that was given to me, I think the best thing you can do is to just make some form of content and put it out there. It can be literally anything. It does not need to be perfect. I know as creators, I think everyone wants the finished product to be the cleanest, best thing that they can make, but it does not need to be that. Just cast over an old VOD, maybe conduct an interview, make an opinion piece to camera. Anything you put out there that shows your personality and your skill set will put you above 90% of people wanting to get into casting. And I think also the esports scene is going through a bit of an interesting change right now, where a lot of publishers are kind of leaning into co-streaming as a new avenue. So they're kind of leaning away from traditional broadcasts and getting a lot of streamers to co-stream their events instead. And it's getting a lot of viewership for certain games. So I think depending on what game you're looking to get into, I would encourage maybe developing your brand through live streaming as well, because yeah, I do think there's a bit of a change happening in the air when it comes to that.
Yeah, my point of view is more from the events organising space. Quite often volunteering at events is a good way to get started. I started as a volunteer for about 5 years at different shows, and you know, you start at the bottom, you start to meet people, as Laura said, you network with people, and you just kind of build those skills. And then eventually it gets to the point where it's like, oh, we need someone for this thing. Oh, that's right, such and such has been doing that for us, let's bring them in. So kind of just being at events, participating in any way that you can. Yeah, existing in the space that you want to be in, and yeah, that's how
I think for me, from the content side, I think, you know, what Laura and Kerrie have already spoken about is really just showing up for yourself. And, you know, like Laura said, it doesn't have to be the perfect piece of content, but just putting it out there, eventually you learn so many transferable skills that not only help you in working in games, but it might lead you to work with, like, say, the film entertainment industries, or becoming, you know, a manager for an esports team or whatnot. There's just so many avenues, but you have to start by just taking that first step and just putting yourself out there. And obviously, as they both said, networking. It's so important, especially in today's world.
I think on the networking aspect as well, in OCE esports in particular, it's such a small industry. Everybody knows everyone. So once you're in this space and you start to get to know everybody, it makes things a lot easier. And then people get to know your skills, get to know your personality, and you might be able to find a fit for yourself. And also putting yourself out there. Like if you are seen on Twitter or anything like that, Instagram, YouTube, and putting things out, people will see it, especially with how small OCE esports is.
And never quit, never give up. I've been doing this 15 years to get to where I am, and I know that there are a lot of people who work really hard to be where they are. You just can't stop. You're going to have lows, you're going to have times where you wonder, am I doing the right thing? Like a bit of imposter syndrome, but if you love doing it, just keep going.
Is there anything else you want to add? Because then I think we might open up to the audience for some questions. So anything else you want to add on top of it that you want to share as well?
Nothing in particular, but I do think getting involved with grassroots events is also really important, kind of talking about building up that networking circle around yourself. I think there are lots of grassroots events that operate in Australia. You may not necessarily hear about them. You may need to go digging a little bit to find them. But yeah, working or volunteering at those sorts of events and getting any sort of experience that you can get really helps when you're trying to get a start in your career.
Okay. So I'll go out into the audience. Do we have any questions for our panelists so far? I'm walking in this direction. Do you guys have any questions?
We answered them too thoroughly already.
We might have. All right, I'll think of a question myself.
Putting the caster on the spot.
I'm thinking, because you guys have answered everything like I would have asked myself pretty clearly. Like, what are the issues? You know, how would we get into esports in the first place and everything like that? Oh, we got one.
Hello. My name, Alyssa. Sorry, hello, I'm Alyssa. What would you say is probably one of your most proud or most favorite moments from working in the gaming industry?
I'll do another answer. Was IEM Sydney was a lot of fun. I got to take care of the VIP section, so I was right in the thick of it, right where the teams were playing, and the energy of the room is just insane. Like, it is such an exciting event, and it's very cool that we're about to watch it again, and it's a sold-out event, so I'm keen to do round 2.
I already said I am Sydney, so I think maybe not necessarily a singular proud moment, but I've been able to travel in this role, which I never really got to travel growing up, so kind of having that privilege to be able to work on really cool events overseas as well, yeah, it's definitely something I don't take for granted.
I want to not say like an event because you've already covered events, but I think for me, another big proud moment was when I got to teach little girls at a like after school program. Just having them just feel so confident in playing games together, in building and doing all sorts in Minecraft, and just seeing the smiles on their faces. Like, I felt really proud because when we first started, we never had girls there. No girl wanted to be there because it was a real boys club, but as the girls started coming in, it was so nice to see them all come together. And I don't know, it's just really special that us women, we all come together and we do cool stuff, and it's great. So, yeah.
Another question down here by Lace, if anybody knows Lace, who may or may not be another woman in gaming, in esports.
Yeah, the girls. No, my question is, we're living in the past, ladies, okay? We've been talking about what you've done previously. I want to know what is coming up for you guys event-wise. What are you getting excited about? What other, I guess, events that are happening can us women look forward to? Or maybe, something that you're about to do in the industry. Of course, NDAs, don't tell us if you can't. But we're really excited to see what's coming up for you gals.
I'm very excited for PAX this year. So PAX in October, woo woo woo! It is the biggest role of my career, which I've just started in January, and I'm very excited to put it on. Obviously can't talk much about what's happening, but a lot is happening, and I'm very excited for everyone to see it.
Yeah, I actually just wrapped up at Twitch last month, so I'm on a bit of a hiatus, let's say, at the moment. But at the moment, I'm really into motorsport, esports, and iRacing. So I mentioned it just before, but when the FIA announced that they're starting their Girls on Track esports program, I got really excited for it. And it's open to anyone over 16 years of age from anywhere in the world. Literally, all you have to do is jump in iRacing and do a time trial, I think it is, on the track. And yeah, I'm really looking forward to seeing what else kind of develops in the motorsport, esports space. Because yeah, I think it's very similar to esports in the sense that there's a lot of interest from females to get involved, and so it's great that there's now kind of a pathway to actually make that happen in reality.
I feel like a lot of my stuff kind of sort of an NDA, so I'll try to answer. But basically, in a nutshell, I'm working with a few organizations in Canada and North America specifically to build a program to help minorities get involved in gaming, essentially. So it's purely focused on trying to give them the support, the tools, just everything that they need to get into gaming, because there's no real program or structured program for them to learn and, upskill themselves. So that's something. And then another thing is happening potentially soon that I cannot talk about, unfortunately. but it's all good stuff, I promise.
Well, that does bring us to the end of our time. So thank you so much, everyone, for joining us, and for our amazing panelists as well.
Thank you for having us. Thank you for listening.
We have the gamer tags underneath their names, so make sure you guys check them out on social media and support the girls, I guess.